Hi everybody. Hi. I'll give you guys a few minutes to hop on and make sure I've got everything working the way it's supposed to. It's been a few weeks since we've done these. Kind of had to refresh my memory on how to do them. So I will hang out here for a few minutes and give everybody time to jump on, and you may have to excuse me here in a second because I feel like I have a sneeze coming. Excuse me. So make a comment, let me know that you're here. I am going to try and see your comments on my computer as I'm stitching, but right now I can see them on the screen of my phone. So, hi Daphne. Daphne's here from Australia. I think that's very cool. I saw so many beautiful quilts at QuiltCon from Australia. I was just blown away. So there's some real talent. Hi Lucy. Thanks for joining me, guys. Here, I'm going to see if I can pull this up. Here we go. Okay. Hi, Mary Beth. Glad you guys could join me. So while we're waiting for everybody to hop on, I wanted to show you what I got at QuiltCon. So QuiltCon, for those of you who don't know, QuiltCon happens once a year. This year it happened in Pasadena. It was last week. It's a big modern quilt convention, and I have not been in a couple years, but it was so close. I'm in Seattle. QuiltCon is in Pasadena this year, so I felt like I really wanted to go. So I took my sister-in-law, who I'm super close to. Hi, Sharon. She lives in Chicago. We never get a chance to really spend a lot of time together, so the two of us went. We rented an Airbnb, which was a guest house behind this huge, beautiful house. And it was about 1.5 miles away on foot to the convention center. So we took this nice brisk walk every day and to the convention center and then back. It was great. So much nicer than staying in a hotel. You feel like you're staying in a house. But anyway, one of the things that we got to do during that 1.5 mile walk was stop into some flea markets and some thrift stores. And I posted this on Instagram, but I didn't know if you guys had seen it or not, but it's a piece of needlework. Look how beautiful this is. Hi, Elizabeth. It says, the world is so full of a number of things. I am sure we should be as happy as kings. So it's a Robert Louis Stevenson line. It's so pretty. It's really dirty. It's really soiled. So I wanted to put a picture of it on Instagram so that after I clean it, I can take another picture of it, because I'm kind of a textile geek. I really enjoy the process of cleaning old linens like this and bringing them back to life. So I'll show you when I'm done. And if you are a member of the Modern Quilt Guild, I recently did a webinar that you can access online in the education section that sort of goes through the process of how I clean these old linens. It's not rocket science, but it really just, it will bring this back to life. And so anyway, I hope you stay tuned. I was pretty excited to get it. I had to buy flat things that would fit in my suitcase. Even though I brought 2 suitcases, they were both very full. So anyway, so tonight we are going to begin our next, hi Sandra, our next Wise Craft Stitch Along. And this is the Springtime Posey. And anybody that's new that's joining in, I'm Blair of Wise Craft Handmade. And you are watching this in the Wise Craft Quilts group. And we've actually, this is the 3rd stitch along that we've done in this group. They're really fun. They're super casual. But the goal is to stitch together, to show what we're working on, to learn a few new things, and just to have fun. These are not meant to be high pressure types of things, but we're going to be doing this banner, and if you are interested in joining, really the only requirement is that you purchase the pattern. The pattern is a PDF download in my shop. It's $6, and that will get you what you need. It's got the templates and everything in there. So here's the actual banner that's on the cover of the pattern. And when I designed this, I did it this way because I wanted to play with embroidery stitches, texture. So I really like the way that there's layers of texture, if you can see that. So we're going to play with some texture. We're going to play with some different embroidery stitches, and we're going to play with, hopefully everybody's going to have like a super unique wool scrap color palette that they like, and hopefully it'll be fun to see these come together in all different kinds of color combinations. So a lot of you have ordered my wool scrap kits. If you are interested, there are a few left, and these have the applique glue that I like. They have wool scrap in sort of a curated palette. They have 2 colors of Orifil wool thread that I love, and I'm going to be using that. They have these cute little needle minders, if you guys remember those. So these are little birdies that come with just a felt center, and you cover the center with your fabric. And I would love to see if anybody's already covered theirs. Would you share a picture with me so that I can see, or share it in the group, because I just love them. It makes me so happy every time I use that little needle minder. But there's a link below, and there's a few of those left. So if you want to get one of those, please feel free. Oh, and they also come in a tote bag, so you can carry your project along. So with that, I'm going to get started. This is going to last about an hour. I'm going to try to get through how I transfer the patterns, how I trace them, how I cut them, and how I lay down my foundation layers. Okay, I think that's good. So if anybody can't see, just let me know. So what I have here are my supplies. And if you have the applique or the wool scrap kit from me, you probably have most of these supplies. But if not, these are the sort of things that you're going to need. You're going to need the pattern, of course. And if you're following along in the stitch along, I would probably just print out the pattern. But normally, you really only need to print out the... Hi, Rosalie. Oh, no. I hope that you're better. Rosalie is just home from a hospital stay with the flu. Oh, that's awful. I hope that you're much better. And normally I would say print out just the template pages, which are pages 6 and 7 in this pattern. But for the stitch along, you may want to print out the entire thing. And when you print them out, oh, before that, I was going to say one of the things, let's talk about the banner. Since I'm not actually going to be doing the banner, let's talk about the banner. So some people had some questions about the base cloth for the banner. And my best advice is to not overthink the banner. So this is an example of a fabric that is like a home deck weight. It's a coarse weave. It's probably a little bit bigger or a little bit heavier than a quilting weight. I would even think a quilting weight would probably work. But you can experiment. If you're worried that the quilting weight fabric might be too light, you can also iron a piece of interfacing onto the back just to give it a little more body if you are, you know, you can't find a color that you want in a home deck weight. But anyway, so if you're making the banner, you're going to need 2 pieces of the base cloth that your banner will be stitched on. And because the finished banner size is 13.5 inches wide by 15.5 inches long, I suggested in the pattern to cut 2 pieces 15 by 16. And really that's so you have space to stitch. I do not use a hoop when I stitch this, but you have space to stitch, and then you have space to sort of trim it up and make it nice and clean on the edges when you're done. So this piece here is what I would use for the banner. It is 15 by 16. I also suggest that on both of the banner pieces, you create the point at the bottom, and I'll move that up a little bit so you can see. So you're going to go ahead and create that point that you see at the bottom of the banner. And it explains how to do it in the instructions, but I'm just going to show you really quickly. It's super easy. But you're going to fold the banner in half lengthwise. And then with a ruler, you are going to measure up from each of the cut edges, or like here's the fold, here's the cut edges. You're going to measure up 2 inches, and I just use a fabric marker or a friction pen or something like that, and you're just going to make a dot. And like I said, this is a friction pen. This will actually go away. And then you're going to turn it over, and you're going to do the exact same thing on this side. So you're going to measure up 2 inches from the cut edge, and you're going to make a dot on the edge there. Whoops. Then what you're going to do with it still folded is take a rotary cutter and a quilting ruler. I'll use one that's a little bit wider to keep my fingers away from the blade. And what you're going to do is align, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to be going up this way, but you're going to align one edge of the banner. This is the folded edge with the edge of the ruler. So those are completely aligned, and then this edge is actually going to line up with where I drew that dot 2 inches up. And then you're going to cut that across both layers. And that is going to make your point. And the reason I have you do that now versus later is because you can imagine you're going to have all that wool and different embroidery on the face of it. It's going to be very bulky. So go ahead and do that now. Do that to both sides. And then whether you are stitching a square piece of fabric or the banner shaped piece of fabric, you're going to find your center pretty easily by just finger pressing the edge. So that's how I would find the center of the banner, because you're going to need that to lay out your pattern. So I'll show you my new version. So because I get bored really easily, I have to do a new version or something completely different. So this time I decided to stretch mine over a just a store-bought canvas. So I was looking because I really wanted to use what I already had. I found a canvas here that I think my kids had probably drawn on at some point, and this is a 12 by 12, and I thought this would work, but it's only actually going to work if I shrink the whole design in just a little bit. So I may do that on mine rather than going out and buying a new canvas, because I think I would rather do that. I'd rather use what I have. So anyway, you'll get to see both versions. But anyway, here's what I've already started. This is a gray, I think this is like a wool acrylic blend. It's nothing special. I kind of liked the color. I wanted to make a new version of this completely different than the first version. So this is what I decided on. And this is, I think, 15 by 16. And so what I'll end up doing is centering this on the canvas and stapling it around, and possibly like gluing it as well. So that's the plan. We'll see how it works. But let me know what you're thinking. Are you all going to do a banner? Are you going to do a stretched piece, or are you going to do something entirely different? So I'd love to know. Hi, Tamara. So anyway, this is where I'm at on mine, and I'm going to show you how to get there tonight. So for my wool, I just used a whole bunch of scraps. These are scraps. You guys might have gotten some of these in your scrap bags. I have a lot of felt. Oh, Sharon would like to make a bag. That would be very cool. I would love to see that. That would be very cool. So I'm using a bunch of scrap wool that I've had in my stash. So I sort of put together a color palette for myself. And it started out pretty muted, as you could see from what I just showed you. But I pulled these out because I might like to add in some different colors. So that's kind of where I'm going with mine. So let's get the pattern ready. So I have my templates printed out, just the pages, and these are pages 6 and 7 in your pattern. And what I find with wool is I really don't like to cut these out of the pages and then stick them down and try to trace around them. So what I like to do is I take them and then I take freezer paper, and I hope everybody is familiar. Oh, Daphne's going to make the banner. Cool. Okay. So I'm going to use freezer paper, which I don't know if everybody's familiar with freezer paper, but I'm going to use freezer paper, and I'll show you what mine looks like. I've been sort of using this roll for a really long time, but I found it in the grocery store. It has a shiny side and a dull side. And what I'm going to do is lay out my pattern, my template sheet, and I rough cut a sheet of freezer paper to go over it, just to trace. So what I'm going to do next is with a pen, I would go and I would trace all of these shapes. These do not have to be perfect. Embrace the organic look, because honestly, it's like these are going through the tracing stage, the cutting stage, the sewing stage, and there's a reason why primitive applique is popular. It's because it's not perfectly shaped. So I'm going to trace all of these, and again, I'm tracing on the dull side, not the shiny side. And if you wanted to write flower 3 on here, you could. I give suggestions on the pattern for how many of each thing to cut. Feel free to change that or amend that however you want to. So you're going to trace all of these onto the paper. Oh, and I forgot to mention there's a little 1 by 1 inch square. When you print out your template, make sure that it's 1 inch by 1 inch so that you know that you will print it out at 100%. If not, check the settings on your printer. But this one is at 100%, so we're good there. So I've traced both of the sheets, of the template sheets, onto freezer paper. So now what I'm going to do is cut them out. And I'm going to use paper scissors for this. And let's see, I'll cut out this one here. So let's see. Lucy wanted to know if we can use regular felt, like acrylic felt, and you absolutely can use regular felt. You can actually use any kind of felt that you want for this. You can use felted sweater pieces. You can use woven felt or, you know, felted wool. Okay, so Sandra's trying to decide between the banner and the canvas. I mean, they're both pretty cool. They both hang on the wall. I think either one would be pretty fun. This was originally a pattern that was done as part of a series for another Facebook group that I am an admin to called School of Wool. And we did a series of banners for each season. So there were 4 banners, and this was the spring season. And I was looking at it back before Christmas thinking I would really like to do a new version. So that's how this came about. It was a really fun banner to stitch. Really fun to experiment with stitches and threads and things like that. And I wanted to mention, I also, hey Erin, I also wanted to mention that in the pattern, I mentioned this as well. I have a Pinterest board where I've collected all kinds of embroidery stitches, and it's actually called Embroidery Stitches. And whenever I see an interesting one, I always collect them in there because there's some really fun stitches that are not hard to do, that sort of have a big impact if you use some fun thread, and they're not difficult to do. So if you're really getting fancy with your banner as we stitch along, you can also watch it or look into that Pinterest board and find some stitches that you might want to add to yours, because that's really what makes this work. Is it's really what makes it shine, is all of the different stitches that you use and the different threads. So you're going to cut out all of your shapes just like this. And then I have my handy dandy little iron here, and I am going to show you, I think I'll make a blue flower. So you're going to get all your shapes cut out, and I don't normally do this one at a time. I usually do it all together. You're going to find the color felt that you want to iron it to, and got the shiny side of the freezer paper down on the wool. And if there's a right or wrong side of the wool, you'd want the right side up. I can't really tell on most wool if there is a right or wrong side. But what you're going to do, and this is actually set pretty high. This wool that I have here is sort of commercial grade wool that was given to me by the architecture firm that my husband works at, so I think it's pretty tough. But you're just going to iron this down, and you can see now how it's ironed to the wool. And you know, it doesn't have to stick very much, but just enough so that it's flat and you can trace it or cut around it and then be done with it. So what I do next is I cut, and I have to tell you guys, I use these scissors that have these tiny serrated teeth. They're made by Kai, and they are such nice scissors to use because the serrated teeth sort of hold onto the fabric so much better. They sort of keep it from slipping, and it really, they're just so nice to use. So I bought these at QuiltCon, but I've had several pair of these Kai scissors for a few years now. I haven't had any of the serrated, but man, I really like these a lot. So they cut really nice. So I'm just going to cut this out. And as you can see, I mean, the wool is not holding this freezer paper perfectly. And, you know, you can pin it down a little bit more if you want to, but I just kind of rough cut these, holding on to the freezer paper, helping it stick. And then I just go back and sort of shape as I need to, because I really don't like to try to trace on the wool. So we'll do it that way. So normally what I do is cut these while I'm watching TV. Yes, Lucy is asking if we can reuse the freezer paper. Yes, you can. And that's another reason why I like it. You really only have to trace it one time, and it just sort of allows you just enough stick to, you know, get it down there and cut around it a few times, and then you can get rid of it. And there are other ways to do this, and you guys are welcome to share any that you like to use, but honestly, it's like, this is my favorite way, and it's why I embrace the organic. I don't worry about it being perfect. So I'm just cutting into these all the way around, and then I just go back and shape the petals. My husband and my son have a date to watch The Godfather tonight on TV, which I think is just so funny because my son's never seen it and he's really curious about it. So they're going to watch it tonight. So I may watch with him. I don't know. It's just so funny that he wants to watch it. He's 16. I guess he's heard enough about, you know, what it was about that he's kind of curious. So anyway, then I go back and I shape the petals. Just kind of roughly. So that's what I do for all. I think, you know, maybe kids need to watch The Godfather, Erin. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just, you know, part of popular culture. I don't know. So anyway, I will check back. I'll let you guys know. It must be, is it like the anniversary of The Godfather? Because I see it on a lot. So I'll have to let you guys know what Ian thought after he watches it, because I'm super curious. So anyway, that's what I do to all of the shapes. I press them down, I cut them out, and then what I would do is, if I was going to do another flower shape, I would press that down again, do the same thing, and I would do that to all of the shapes. So you can see the one I've started here. Also would take vines like this and actually flip them the other way. So I would take this and I would trace it, or I would cut it out, I would turn it over, and then I would trace it going the other way on a, you know, if I wanted to use two of them and have one going off in opposite directions. But that's something that you can do too in all of these. So once you have everything cut out, and I would do that before I start laying out the design, I would cut everything out And just know that when you cut everything out and you're ready to lay out your design, you may want to go back and cut a few other pieces. So laying out the design is pretty simple. We're going to lay out the first bottom layer first and build up from there. So this is where your applique glue comes in. And I just love this stuff because you can iron it. It doesn't make a mess. You only need a couple dots and it really works. So if let's pretend like instead of the blue that this is the flower I just cut out, the gray. If I was going to do this as part of my bottom layer, but I wanted to put this, which is also one of your templates, on the center of it, then you could do it two different ways. You could put a little applique glue down and kind of put this where you want it. And when you put the applique glue down, I'm going to show you how much you use. You really just use a couple dots. I would do that, 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 and that. And that's really it. And then you're going to lay it down. So let's see. Looks like this is kind of the layout from your pattern. So I would lay it kind of like right here. And you could absolutely feel free to change that. So it takes about 5 minutes to dry or so. Let's see, Barb wanted to know. Okay, so Barb is unable to access the video cleanly. Yes, it will be available as a replay in the Wise Craft Quilts group, and I will also upload it to YouTube. So do not despair. It will be there. Is everybody else able to see me okay? Let me know if not. I'm not sure why. Okay, so it sounds like people can see me okay. Okay, great, great, okay. So yes, this will be available for replay. So after about 5 minutes, you could definitely yank this off. It's not, you know, cemented down, but what this is going to allow you to do is to take it with you. You know, it's a portable project at that point. So you could then, if you wanted to, add, if this is still part of your bottom layer, you know, I would put little dots of glue underneath each of these leaves as I was laying them out. I put a few dots of glue under that. I'm going to put maybe 3 dots of glue under this and put that down. And you're just going to create the first layer. Don't go crazy. Let's see. How far inside the edges should we place our pieces? So once you've found the center, if you're making the banner, you keep in mind that the finished size of the banner is 13.5 inches wide. So you want to keep, and you've cut your banner pieces, I think 15 inches, 15 inches wide. So you're going to want to keep in mind that you're going to lose an inch-ish on either side. And just, you know, on my banner, I've got some space around the outside. So just keep that in mind. Same goes for the wrapped canvas. You're going to want to remember that you're going to need room to wrap your canvas. So you know, at least an inch, maybe even an inch and a half for your canvas. So long story short, focus your design in the center going out, no larger than, you know, 12 3/4 to 13 inches. And I would actually probably stay in the 12 3/4 inches. So hopefully that helps. But you're going to put your first layer down as I've done here. And what I wanted to show you is how I stitch these. So if you look on here, I've got these tiny little, let me find one that's a lighter color so that you can see. I've got these tiny little stitches, these little stitches that are perpendicular to the edge. This is what I use to wrap the stitches around the pieces, to wrap the stitches around the edge of the pieces. Which is why if you secure your pieces down with this type of stitch, that's why you can use a woven wool that might have a frayed edge or something like that. You're securing the edges down like that with that sort of stitch. So I'm going to show you how to do that sort of stitch. So I use a regular thread for this type of stitching. I don't use a fancy thread. I use a coordinating thread. For this, if I were stitching down the gray, I have just a gray 50 weight Aurifil thread here, a dark like smoky gray, but I would use a coordinating stitch to secure these down because this really isn't a decorative stitch. We haven't gotten to that part yet. So we're just going to secure these down. So I'm going to do my Quilters Knot. And I'll show you that again if you want to see it. But I'm going to hold this up so that you can really see what I'm doing. And if you have trouble seeing on the gray, I will switch to stitching down the blue. But I'm going to come up just inside the edge of the applique piece that's on the base cloth, but through all the layers, just inside, like, I don't know, that's a scant, that's like 1/8 of an inch. I'm just catching that edge. I'm coming up and I'm going to go back down right into the base fabric, if you can see that, but right at the edge of the applique piece. And when I go in, I'm going to orient my needle so that I come up. So, all right, I lost you guys for a second, but I'm back. I'm not sure what's going on, but anyway, I'm going to come back up into the applique piece. So I'm going to show you that again. But what you're going for is a stitch that is perpendicular to the edge and sort of wrapping around the edge of that applique piece. So you can't even really see that piece or that stitch once you stitch that in there. So let's do it again. So the thread is up through both pieces, both the applique piece and the base cloth. I'm going in to the base cloth, and then I'm angling my needle to come up about 1/4 of an inch away from that last stitch. I'm sorry I didn't get my nails manicured for you guys. And then you're going to pull it through. So here, maybe you can see a little bit better on the white. Can everybody see that? Let's see where it would show up really well. I think it shows up best on these mustard colored ones. But the idea of this stitch is to secure it down. It's not really meant to show. You'll see it, but it doesn't really add anything. It just secures it down. So I'm going to continue stitching this, and I'll do it a little bit faster so that you guys can see what I'm doing. But I'm always doing a stitch perpendicular to the edge. And with the goal being that is going to be a completely flat little applique piece when I'm done. So I'm just going around the petal. And I'm not so tight around the edge that it's causing it to, you know, sort of distort the edge. I want the edge to be smooth. I don't want to pull it too tightly. I just really want to secure it. So hopefully you guys can see that. It really matches. I should have done like a bright pink thread. And now I'm going to the corner, the little joint there, and I'm going to go, sometimes I might take an extra stitch in there just to make sure it's like stuck down. But when you start doing these, this goes pretty quickly. So what I do is just pull out, when I'm ready to start stitching these down, I pull out a bunch of thread that matches the pieces, and I just start stitching them down. Looks like you guys are going in and out a lot. So I think what I'm going to do, anyway, I tried something, but I don't think it's working. But this will be available to replay, so you guys can watch it. And I apologize. I can't tell if it's anything on my end or not. It looks like it's working on my end, but I don't know. This interweb stuff's really hard. I'm going to try to go out and come back in again, and I apologize for everybody that is able to get me pretty clearly, because what I see on the computer screen looks like it's not working so well, so I'm going to try it one more time. And for some reason, bear with me just 1 minute. I don't know why it's showing you my screen in that direction. But anyway, okay. We'll just keep on going. Sorry about that. So we're just going to keep on stitching around. And hopefully you guys can see this okay. Lost my thread there. Oh, Lucy's back. Thank you. Sorry about all of the technical issues. I'm not sure what's going on, but I barely let anybody breathe in this house when I'm doing a Facebook Live video, so I'm not really sure what's going on. But anyway, so you can see I've stitched down these few leaves right here. Hopefully you can see the stitches enough to understand what I have going on. But you're going to do that all the way around. And this, as I said, it goes pretty quickly once you start. You kind of get into a rhythm. So do not despair about the fact that you have to do that. And what's great about it is that once they're down, they're really down. They're not going anywhere. So it's good stitching to do in front of the TV. But this is what we're going for. And when you're doing the stems here, you're going to do both sides. You could do a single running stitch around the outside instead. You could do a blanket stitch, but honestly, those would be something you would do if you wanted that stitch to show up. If you wanted that to be an element of your design, you could absolutely do something like a blanket stitch or a contrasting running stitch or something like that. But what I do is a matching thread in that little perpendicular stitch, perpendicular to the edge, all the way around, and that's how I do it. So what you're going to do is do that to your entire first layer. And I really don't add any embroidery stitches or fancy stitches until I get to the next layer. But if you want to, I would focus your embroidery stitches on these outer leaves, because a lot of what's in here could possibly get covered up and you wouldn't be able to see a lot of your nice handwork. So you may want to just wait until you add the next layer to start adding your embroidery stitches. And I'm also going to show you some of the embroidery stitches that we're going to do as well. So that is all that I planned to go over tonight. I'm going to be back on tomorrow. And what we're going to do tomorrow night is start talking about the dimensional flowers. So those are the ones that on the original piece look like these guys. And this is actually a flower from my first book. And so we're going to talk about making those. They're really easy. They're fun. And we're also going to talk about where I decided to add in. I took some of the leaves, I traced them, and then I cut the stem, the longer leaf template. I sort of just cut different leaves off of the longer stem and ended up just kind of tacking them into different places on this to add some dimension, because when I started to add the dimension on it, I really liked it a lot, and I really think it makes this piece. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow night, and hopefully we'll have a better connection. But in the meantime, I will do my homework and look at how I'm supposed to upload this to YouTube now, so that I can go ahead and get it uploaded. And if you have questions, please post them in the group, because likely somebody else has the same question. I'm going to actually turn you guys around so that you can see. So if you have questions, post the questions in the group, because likely somebody else has the same question. And I'm here to help. I'm here to answer. And there are decorative embroidery stitches in the pattern itself. We can go over those, or we can do some new ones. I mean, there's so many fun stitches to do. We can do some new ones as well. So have fun adding your first layer and getting ready for your second layer. Here's an example of the flower that I'm going to stitch on next. It's actually got 3 layers. So start stitching all that down, and I will see you guys tomorrow night at 5:30. In the meantime, please post your little birdies. I would love to see what kind of fabric you guys covered your little birdie bellies with, because they're just so cute. And for those of you that do not know what I'm talking about, the idea behind these little birdies is that when you are not stitching, there's a magnet behind your work underneath the birdie. The birdie's here in front, and then you can put your needle on the birdie, and there's a magnet inside that holds it in place. So it's a needle minder. These are in the wool kits. They're so cute. The people that designed them for me did such a beautiful job. So I'm really, really excited about them. So I'd love to see what you covered yours with. But in the meantime, I'm going to sit and watch The Godfather and do some more stitching. But I hope that you will too, and I will see you all tomorrow. Okay? Have a great night. See you tomorrow.